We're very proud of our code as well. I mean, we run these tests and we generally don't have any significant technical problems. And you look at the state of games that go out the door. I'm not going to name names. You know what I'm talking about,
right? Yeah.
And I think it's my own personal opinion that this is just unacceptable. People need to take pride in their craft, and I know there's pressure to release, but come on. I mean,
like when you have fans making their own rollback netcode, that's not a good sign. It means that your netcode is not good enough and you need to improve your netcode, but some companies just don't do it.
I think there's a problem in the industry. I don't blame the company so much as I blame our ability to generate sufficient quality engineers. I mean, we're hiring all the time, and you would be shocked by how many interviews I do on a weekly basis where the candidates can't, even with experience and super high salary requirements, can't pass simple programming tests. I'm like, what is going on? It never used to be like this, but this is just my observation. And I know
no, I know you're right.
The industry, but I blame it on VR. Hear me out. What happened is that a lot of money started getting poured into the VR space. And there's no way to make any money with VR right now. It's very rare, right? But there's a lot of
low user base, so it's difficult. Yeah.
But there's a lot of money to make things, just stupid money, right? Or for whatever reason, there's a lot of money. So people are being hired, and they're paying them big 6-figure salaries, and they're not any good at what they do. But then those projects come to an end because obviously they're not going to make any money. These people have an expectation and possibly a lifestyle built around these high 6-figure salaries, and they start looking for work at other studios. And if they're not another place like that, they're going to run into real trouble. I think that's created a kink in the talent pool right now. I'm not saying everyone's like that, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
But
your unique experience,
it's my own experience, and it never used to be like that. Now, one of the things about Simutronics, though, is, and what might be contributing to this, is that historically we don't hire people with experience anyway. We always hire people who haven't had any industry experience, or maybe even had a job for that matter before. But if they show that they do this kind of stuff, make games on their own, have that kind of aptitude and interest in doing that kind of stuff, we've given them the foot in the door to join us. And that's why our average employee tenure is a decade. Is people grow up with us, they learn how to work in our environment and benefit from the way we operate, and we get really, really high quality engineers that way. And trying to hire people from other studios into that environment has been kind of difficult for us. So that kind of slows our growth a little bit on that side, but it's just something we have to deal with. On the plus side, Simutronics, does some things very differently than other studios. I'll just rattle off a couple real quick. We have a results-only work environment, which means we don't care about where you work, how you work, when you get it, when you work, that kind of stuff. We only care about the results you actually get and how it contributes to the project and to the team. Nobody is required to report to me. I'm the boss, but I'm just in there coding like everyone else. And but they're responsible to the team. And so those are who they have to answer to. You don't have to tell me that your dog got sick and you need to fix a burst pipe in your apartment. You do whatever you do. You're a full-grown human adult. I'm not here to micromanage you.
I think that's a very good way of thinking, especially now in 2021 with all the stay-at-home orders. I can't say how many people that I've met or talked to, and they talk, people, you need to be in an office, and you're like, why? Because you got to make sure people are working. And I think, well, if you have to make sure they're working in an office, then that means you probably didn't do a very good job hiring them, because they need someone to stare over their shoulder.
Like I had said it.
Yeah.
The way you put that.
Exactly, that's the whole point, right? You will see if someone's not working, like remotely, you can tell because they're not getting
butts and seats doesn't mean anything. Yeah.
I was thinking when you told me about your whole story about how you hire process and the people with 6-figure salaries is the Daikatana fiasco. That's all I thought about when you tell me that. Just because you take these people, right, who've made this massive game, who are technical design geniuses, and they just make this game that completely flops, and they dumped millions and millions and millions of dollars into these minds, to make this game, and it completely fail. You know what I mean? Like, it can happen just because you pay a lot of money.
he had a clever answer. He said the reason that game failed is because most of the people had Ferraris in the parking lot already.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's crazy. But I think
I don't know. Yeah. You know, now with COVID, you know, our results only work environment just fits so well with that. I hate to say that because that sounds such a horrible disease, but the consequences are horrific. But at the same time, it's helped us change. You know, we have an office, but nobody's there, obviously, because of COVID. And now we're just hiring. We don't care where you live anymore. We'll just hire from anywhere. And so that really opens up the talent pool for us.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into the business like analytics too much, but yeah, I mean, it just if you didn't have like the money you would spend on rents and utilities as an office can go into dev now, and that could be a substantial amount of dev funds now because you don't have to pay for that. And like you said, you open the talent pool wider because you don't have to have people local by your studio.
You reminded me that we signed a 3-year lease like 1 month before we had to shut down for COVID.
Oh, that's how they get you, the 3-year lease. But
that's the way it goes.
So
we still need the office though for things like motion capture and things like that. Although we're not able to do it right now, but we have a motion capture studio and just sitting there. We can't think of a safe way to use it right now. So
this won't last forever. We'll eventually get out of it, but it may take a while. So at least you have it if you need it. I want to go back. You mentioned like, spending money in VR. Did that conversation come up? Because I mean, a mech game in VR sounds like a dream, but I know there's a lot of complications and design things that go into something like that. So you can't just simply port it to VR. But did that come up at all in your design?
Yeah, the biggest issue is, that first of all, you're drawing everything twice. So there's your frame rate problem. Then you have to design your user interface to work on lower resolution screens than you would otherwise imagine a lot of times, although that's starting to get better. But things have to be bigger and easier to hit and button wise. So a lot of the conventions that exist are different on VR. So it's not just simply, install the VR plugin and press go. It's not at all. And there's a lot of trickery that goes into dealing with the frame rate issues, where games have to actually think about how the eyes perceive things on the periphery and can lower detail in your peripheral vision and things like that, which I'm not totally up on. And it's like that's why so few games do it out of the gate, is because it's a lot of work for not much market gain currently. The real problem is, and it's funny thing you say this, because back in the late 90s, I had actually done an early VR version of Cyberstrike, believe it or not. This is very early, when consumer VR headsets, were huge monstrosities, and but they existed, and I dealt with a lot of those issues. And I eventually came to the conclusion everyone knows right now, which is when your eyes and your inner ear disagree, that is kind of the definition of motion sickness. And there's no way out of that quandary right now. We will always have to deal with the problem that it's easy to get sick in VR. And with a game like ours that is fast and things are moving around like they are, whipping around, I'm not sure it's going to be a good fit. Doesn't mean we won't try though. It's not hard to at least do a prototype of it and see.
And I may be getting my ahead of myself once again, but like obviously a lot of mech games, I want to say like Mech Warrior, you could use controls like the big lumbersome, like. And did you guys ever talk about that in the design phase? Like, what if you used the flight simulator controls and a joystick? You know what I mean? Like,
we opted not to. We opted to make a game that was more like a traditional shooter.
Right.
That is what everyone is used to. It's WASD and the mouse. A few little variations on what you expect, space bars, jump. Obviously you can remap all that or use a controller, but not a joystick. Or that, what was that thing called? That big, remember there was a game that supported that giant mech based control console that had all the physical switches plus 2 joysticks. Do you remember that?
I want to say it was Mech Warrior, but I don't know if that's right.
It wasn't Mech Warrior. It was something else, like Chrome Hounds or something. Can't remember. It was a console-based game. One of our employees had bought that thing and brought it in a long time ago. This is when we were just years and years ago, and we were playing
the
with.
user base is probably relatively small, so dumping dev time to support those huge electronic peripherals is probably not worth it in the long run.